You are tuned in to the Foul Weather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
Some are calling it a Godzilla El Niño, a Super El Niño of monster proportions. But will it all unfold as told? In 2015, NASA scientists coined the informal term Godzilla El Niño to describe a weather pattern that distorts the jet stream and causes extreme global temperatures. We dive deep into what the coming El Niño means for the summer growing season, duck production, duck migration, and duck hunting conditions. Plus, a turkey season bust, but not. Farm news and planting and hunting plans for the 2026 season. A quick reminder to rate, follow, like, and share the Foul Weather Podcast to get all the latest updates and our exclusive duck migration forecast each Monday morning throughout season, plus all of our informative content throughout the year. Be the guy at the coffee shop with the real information about the ducks and where the ducks are at. I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. We thank our every week listeners. You know who you are. Those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. Think about that, right? You know where the ducks are at before the ducks even know where they're at. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the Foul Weather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. I'm your host, DrMike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. So I wrote the below on the day before the last day of turkey season, and that comment that I wrote started out like this. I can now attest that having the best turkey season ever is possible without shooting a turkey. The spring woods is a special place, and so on. But now we need to rewrite this tale because I finally bagged a 2-year-old Tom at 6:30 this morning on the last day of turkey season in New York. All right, the spring woods, folks. The spring woods is truly a special place that goes from that stark brown stare of naked trees to the blooming forest floor. The morel mushrooms pop, the trout lilies and mayapples make their appearance for a fleeting moment, and slowly the forest floor darkens as the leaves fill the canopy more each day. The sunrise creeps earlier and earlier, and the sun sets later and later. The heat creeps into the woods, and the sounds of plows and planters hard at work are in the background and growing. The turkey woods are alive with all the birds coming back from the south, and I myself, with my time out in the woods, with these great summer songsters returning from the southern U.S., it may even be better than the turkeys themselves. A lot of these birds are coming from as far south as Central and South America. Some of them are returning from the southern U.S. as well to the northeast U.S. to greet us. An early arrival at the farm is the phoebe, the eastern phoebe. It screams its name, Phoebe, wakes me up one morning. And that is the true sign of the start of spring. Next, the tree swallows, they start to explore their nest boxes we have at the farm. But in the woods, it is the hermit thrush that brings the woods to life with its music. Not long after, its close relative, the wood thrush, shows. Then the barn swallows return to our barn. And after that, I'd say the floodgates of birds opens. The blue-headed vireo, rose-breasted grosbeak, and Baltimore orioles arrive. And after that, the warblers en masse. The yellow warbler, the black-throated blue warbler, the black-throated green warbler. Now, I know a lot of you don't know these birds, but some of them are so easy to identify. The black-throated green warbler loves big pine stands and sings Z-Z-Zoo-Zoo-Z. And then it's kind of open season for all the wood warblers to show up. Late to the game, though, is the thrush, the veery with its spiraling song. That is a sign that I better have shot a turkey, and if not, I should be getting nervous. We're into mid-May at least at this point. And then late to the game is the eastern wood pewee. It sings kind of pee-wee, pee-woo. I know I sound like a bird nerd, but that's because I am. But last is that lonesome and haunting sound of the yellow-billed cuckoo. And now in the wee hours of turkey season, the pressure was on. And we finished with one bird this year. And so I sit in the afternoon recording this episode on the last day of New York turkey season with memories of plants and birds from this May that'll last forever. Yeah, okay, I know they'll fade as all memories do, but I will do my best to remember this one until the next one. There is always another May, right? Another May turkey season. All right, we're going to do our best to keep the story short here of our turkey hunting because all our dedicated listeners of the Foul Weather podcast know how well I do that. So here we go. First, I struck out up north and down south on the turkeys, and with the new puppy, Nimue, my wife and I decided to stay close to home. Turns out we hunted the same turkey in the same woods for countless days, and we never connected specifically with that bird. But I've never heard so many gobbles, had so many hens bugger me up, and never seen a single turkey strut or gobble so much. In the end, we got out and we got it done. Or better yet, maybe this bird wasn't meant to be, but another one was. We never spooked that gobbler we were after, and we never shot at him. On 7 or more occasions, he was at 50, 60 yards, but never came closer. At one point, he was at 40 yards, but strutted on a side hill and only showed us his fan. He would never poke his head up over the edge. That day, he strutted at the top of the woods on the edge of a field. 2 jakes watched from a distance as he was with a hen, then puffed up a bit, but they never gobbled or strutted. Eventually that day, that gobbler walked off, and Sarah was across the woods from me. We had split up because we had 2 places he was frequenting. So when he walked off gobbling with his hen, I walked over to her to kind of decide what to do next. Pow! He gobbles right below us. She drops back down to the tree she was on, and I grabbed bark and sat down on a tree about 10 yards behind her. Both of us, guns up, barrels parallel, and slightly offset, but I was planning on covering the left flank as needed. Pow! He cuts me off. Wow, he's close. So Sarah gets her gun ready. I am close enough to hear her take off the safety. There are the tail feathers, but also a hen coming up the hill from left to right. Here we go, I think. But he just struts right there for about 15 minutes. I barely see the top of his red head for a second, but the hen moves at a 45-degree angle away from us, and he does the same. By the time he's in view, up on the side of the hill, he's 60 yards away and gone. He works all the way up to the top of the woods by the field, and then all the way around to exactly where I was sitting in the morning. If I had just sat still, he would have been a dead turkey walking right by me. This type of situation plays out over and over for days. Mostly this Tom always has hens right in front of him until the last day of season. And they could come right to us, guns up. These birds are coming right to us. He sits behind these hens at 60 yards, and she comes in front of me at 5 yards. This happens over and over. Put. She picks me out, even when I'm perfectly still. She says, purr, put, purr, and walks him in a perfect circle just on the edge of our shooting range. All right, now a lot of you'll say, just get some TSS and a tight choke, a scope, and whack him. But that's not my style. Y'all know me better than that. I work hard at this, and I like to do things the hard way and shoot birds at 20 to, say, 35. I might stretch to 40 yards at times. But now today we get out of bed at 3:45 to get into the woods before the turkeys can see us move in. He gobbles about 100 yards away, drops down to about 80 yards and struts. Doesn't budge at first. He's on a strut line. Over my right shoulder, I hear what I think could be a turkey dropping down like a flap, 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 and a thud on the ground. But I'm focused on this big Tom we've been after all season. He finally budges from the strut line and comes angling towards me, drops down into a gully, and I'm waiting for him to appear. But he doesn't for minutes at all. No gobbles, nothing. Then somehow I see him uphill from me at about like a weird 20-degree angle to my right, like way further over than what I thought he would be. He's at about 70 yards. I yelp, and he gobbles, puffs up, and walks down the hill towards me. At 35 yards, pow, I drop him. But pow, another turkey gobbles up the gully and up towards where my wife is seated this morning. My bird flops down the hill, and I go get him. Pow, that other bird is still gobbling. I get to the bird I dropped, and it has no tail, right? Like literally no tail. Like it's scarred over, like its tail's gone, like a coyote bit it off or something. But the strutter I had been watching had a full fan in the morning, so I didn't even kill the bird that we've been after the whole time. I'll try to make a long story short here. I must have shot a different bird than what I was watching. My wife texts me. She has a tom, a jake, and a hen in front of her. So whatever that thing was that I heard thud hit the ground, the thing probably fell out of a tree like a bowling ball without its tail as a rudder. But I must have shot a different bird than the one I was watching. So I dropped back and cut a huge circle around the farm, across the neighbor's property, if we have permission from and everything, to get over to her, actually crawl through a hayfield with poison ivy in it. I sneak up behind her to call, and before I can get there, a hen flies from a nearby field right into the woods next to Sarah. She texts me, WTF. A hen just landed and sprinted into the group. I get to the edge of the woods and see this tom strutting at about 80 yards with two hens and a jake. So he walks off. Not much we can do about that with live hens. He gobbled at us a whole bunch. We went back out after we let the dogs out. We had to get back to the farmhouse here, let the dogs out. And we came back at 10 a.m. So we bumped a hen and a tom out of our food plot on the way in. And I think it's that same dang tom, but he didn't seem too spooked. They both ran into the high brush where I think she's nesting. And so we get set up in the woods, and pow, he gobbles. Only about a minute that we're actually even sitting there. And we worked that bird right until noon, but he never passed 60 yards. I even did the, back way out, to sound like I was leaving. And then when I came back up behind Sarah, I hammered on the box call and mouth calls, cutting, yelping over myself. He double, triple, quadruple gobbled, but he never budged. So time ran out on us on the end of season, on the last day of turkey season. So we let him walk rather than take a poke and mess it up. So he lives for another day and hopefully season. Good news is lots of hens around, so hopefully some successful nests again this year, because turkeys in our part of the world, like others, have been tanking. So, okay, enough turkey talk. We ordered a bag of Hancock seed by foul weather northern deer food plot seed and a bag of northern waterfowl food plot mix, and it was delivered for free from Hancock Seed. In fact, most of their 25-pound bags of seed are delivered for free, but also really important is how fast the seed got all the way to Jack's Reef from Florida. It arrived in 5 days. I was super impressed. But none of these mixes are in yet. The Northern Deer Food Plot Mix will go in the first week of August and then feed deer all year round thereafter until we put in another bag down the following August. The waterfowl mix is going in a plot that we had corn in last year, but we got 2.8 inches of rain on Memorial Day weekend. So we're waiting until that dries out to get that in as a conservation seed that will feed songbirds, deer, turkeys. It's Jap and Chihuahua millet, barnyard grass, smartweed, panic grass, and chufa is in it too. So looking forward to feeding the critters and renewing that soil a bit with organic matter with that. It's a food plot, waterfowl food plot mix for sure, but it's also a great conservation mix for soil and for other critters. All the other food plots are in, though, a mix of soybeans, corn, sorghum, winter peas, buckwheat, and sunflowers. The gardens are in. The pups, Dr. Zug, Jaeger, and Nimue did their best to sleep in the shade while we put all the seeds and plants in: tomatoes, potatoes, cucumbers, bush and pole beans, winter and summer squash, pumpkins, okra, the key ingredient in our gumbo, dent corn, shelling and snap peas, carrots, beets, spinach, lettuce, kohlrabi, sweet and hot peppers, eggplant, and kale. Man, I probably missed something, but looking forward to a great summer with the dogs in the gardens, watching bucks grow, helping the turkey poults along, and hoping for another great growing season for the ducks so that we see them when they come south. Next, we dive into what El Niño means for the 2026-2027 growing and duck seasons, so please stick with me. It is months until planting season, but your vision is already clear. The land is your passion, and Hancock Seed has your back. You plan food plots to feed and attract game in ways that matter for months. Live on your land with Hancock Seed. Today you plan, tomorrow you harvest. With Hancock Seed, you get family farm faith, nearly a century in the making. Hancock Seed has partnered with Foul Weather to produce 3 distinct seed blends. The Northern Deer Food Plot Mix, a proven combination that keeps deer coming all year round. The Southern Waterfowl Mix for carbohydrate-driven ducks. And the Northern Waterfowl Mix, built to succeed even in the toughest summers. Hancock Seed specializes from turf to plow and beyond. Find them today at hancockseed.com. That's hancockseed.com. All right, and we are back to talk about the coming El Niño event. El Niño is likely to emerge soon with 82% chance in May through July 2026, and it is expected to continue through December 2026 to February 2027. So this event will certainly have an impact on the coming duck season. In fact, we've actually never seen a prediction with this much confidence. But more than that, recent data suggests that the strong El Niño event is developing, but also already showing early warning signs of affecting global atmospheric circulation, or the jet stream, as folks like to call it. What remains in question is the intensity of this El Niño event. For November 26 through January 27, there is a 66% chance of a strong or very strong El Niño, with a 33% chance of something that's weaker in that, still in that El Niño category, though. First, let's take a really quick look at what even defines an El Niño. In simplest terms, it is a naturally occurring event whereby the surface water of the Pacific Ocean near the equator warms and creates predictable changes in atmospheric pressure systems across the planet that affect our temperature and precipitation pretty darn predictably. In North America, during strong and very strong El Niño events during winter, we end up with much warmer than normal conditions in the north, especially in the Pacific, Central, and Mississippi flyways. The Atlantic flyway, though, is a toss-up. More on the Atlantic for the growing season in a bit. Typically, the warm air rushing out of the Pacific and into the southern states hits the cooler air to the north and produces abundant rains from Southern California over through Texas and across to Florida. But the upper Midwest tends to be drier and warmer. My friends across duck country, time to step up your calling with Beckman Game Calls. These beauties sound like a duck. Just have a listen. First, a real hen mallard, and then the Edison in the flooded timber of Arkansas. Beckman Game Calls with a lot of new colors and woods coming soon. Both the Edison and the Groundbreaker calls are adjustable to your air pressure, and the Groundbreaker is the first adjustable cut down on the market. Check out Beckman Game Calls today at beckmangamecalls.com. Now let us talk a bit about the predictive power of the El Niño forecast. First, understand here there are many different models, and the ensemble is the average of all of these predictive models. Typically, the outliers don't happen on any given year, and it is more near the average prediction that the ensemble depicts. But something happened this year that has never happened before. When the overall sea surface temperatures for the equatorial Pacific are a half of a degree Celsius or more above average for 3 consecutive months, that is, it's a half degree Celsius or more on average across that whole equatorial Pacific, then normal for 3 consecutive months, that is considered an actual El Niño event. You know, a 0.5 or half a degree is weak, but it's still an El Niño event. Anything above 2 degrees Celsius is very strong, and anything above 3 degrees is extreme or a super El Niño or your Godzilla El Niño when it gets really crazy. Now, what happened this year, though, has never happened before, and NOAA had to adjust the y-axis, that's the up and down axis on a graph. One of the models is predicting an anomaly of greater than 4 degrees Celsius by November. Wow. So, again, the average tends to be more near what is going to happen, but this is kind of what has people really worried. The 1877 to 1878 Super El Niño was a record-breaking climate anomaly that triggered multi-year simultaneous droughts in really vulnerable tropical regions. The resulting famines devastated populations worldwide with a death toll equivalent to about 3 to 4% of the global population at that time. Wow. All right. Of course, we're better prepared nowadays, and that's not meant as a scare tactic of any sort, but it does help us to be mindful about the impacts for the coming growing season and the coming duck season potentially. Again, the basics of a Godzilla El Niño can lead to more extreme weather shifts, kind of turning normal seasonal changes into high-impact events such as massive flooding, severe droughts, severe storms, and significantly altering pressure system tracks that can affect your growing season and your duck season. So let's start with the coming June. And a lot of y'all probably already have your plants in or your planting done and stuff, but the continued growing heat of the Pacific is likely to help a heat dome develop for June over the Pacific Northwest U.S. and Southwest Canada, over to about like Lake Winnipeg and then down into about Colorado. In contrast, eastern Canada and the northeast U.S. is likely to be cooler this summer because the polar jet stream is pushed up and over the heat dome and comes crashing down through the lower Great Lakes, that's Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. It's through the lower Great Lakes region before hitting the heat of the Atlantic Ocean. This also has a high likelihood of relatively high winds from the west and north for eastern Canada, along with dry conditions, but then farther down the coast in Florida and over through southern California, we should see increased precipitation as the warm and wet flow continues to push east and north out of the equatorial Pacific. Depending on how far the polar jet plunges on the northeast coast, this also could bring strong rains to the mid-Atlantic region as well. The polar jet hitting the heat dome also should spur some good thunderstorms across the eastern U.S. and Canadian prairies. So kind of eastern prairies. Let's say eastern Dakotas, kind of more Manitoba-ish into kind of Minnesota, Wisconsin, right? So not bad news for ducks and ducklings because these should be kind of warm rains, not the type that would cause hypothermia in ducklings and potentially kill them, which happens earlier in the season. From a planting perspective, we're having a really late year in the northeast U.S. and eastern Canada from the cool weather. Germination of crops is really slow. I got soybeans and corn just sitting in the ground right now. And with the dry coming, it's really going to be kind of variable quality germination and growth based on seed varieties, seed treatments, and planting depths in general that folks focused on. For the southern U.S., wet conditions will prevail along with heat, which should make for a good growing season in general. It also should lead to a better than past water table going into duck season. There is a real possibility for hot and dry, though, to set in the prairies in July through September. But again, the polar jet stream line should continue to at least set up thunderstorms, and how far north or south is really hard to tell yet. Those are more like weekly forecasts anyway. Going into duck season, really the bad news is that the November, December, January time period is very likely to be quite warm, with delayed migration. That said, I'd focus more on moist soil this year than crops. Of course, a flooded corn crop is always good as cover, no matter if they're the type of ducks that really go after corn or not. Flooded corn is, and don't get me into the debate. I don't care, really. It's ridiculous. So flooded corn is always good cover from aerial predators, but so is coffee weed. So just think about how much money you want to spend on corn this year when you could instead be focusing on small seed eaters like green-winged teal and pintails with moist soil, as well as holding permanent water and providing aquatic vegetation for gadwall and widgeon, plus those bug eaters, the shovelers. Anyhow, lots of folks in the Mid-South and South probably already have their planting done anyway, but I'd be scaling it back a bit this year. The good news for folks in the South, though, is that you should be wet, so you will have water options, which is better than a severe drought like last year. We also can't forget that Southern California usually has a wetter than normal winter during El Niño, which will be a welcome sight considering the dry and wildfires from this spring. Also remember that the strong polar jet stream that rushes out of Canada and into the Atlantic Ocean typically produces too much shear for hurricanes to form. So that's good news. But again, this just reduces capacity for hurricanes to develop. It does not mean that hurricanes will not develop. If anything does develop that will impact fall and winter habitat conditions for waterfowl, you're going to hear about it here on the Foul Weather Podcast first. We all know that feeling. Every waterfowl hunter knows the feeling. You're motionless in the marsh at first light, watching birds work the spread, hoping this season is as good as the last, hoping that the future has birds working the spread for generations to come. At the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the mission is simple: to guarantee all Americans quality places to hunt and fish. For waterfowl hunters, that means safeguarding habitat and migration corridors and creating more places to hunt, so strong fall flights and good hunting opportunities aren't a thing of the past. As the nation's largest coalition of conservation groups, TRCP brings together hunters, anglers, and conservation partners to make sure the future of waterfowl hunting stays strong. Learn more today and join the TRCP by visiting trcp.org. Folks, do go check out TRCP. They are doing great work for hunter access and all kinds of improvements for habitat, really collaborating across a wide range of partners. So check them out at trcp.org. All right, let's wrap up our El Niño discussion today for y'all. If you keep records, remember that this El Niño even looks to be substantially more powerful than the 2023-24, 2015-16, 1997-98, and 1982-83 events. So go back to your records and have a look at what those duck seasons were like, and shoot me a Facebook message, an Instagram message, or an email at drmike@foulweather.co and let me know what those seasons look like for y'all. Again, those were 23-24, 15-16, 97-98, and 82-83. Stay tuned to the Foul Weather Podcast for developing El Niño news throughout the summer. We also have a great list of guests coming, plus more on breeding ground conditions, the Bebop report late in summer, and then we are right back into the duck migration forecast season. This summer is going to blow by, kids, so don't be asleep at the wheel. Thanks for listening, and as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.